Have you ever found yourself in a spiritual crisis and just wished you had some kind of roadmap to get through it? Well, according to theologian Viola, that roadmap might have been hiding in plain sight for the last 2,000 years, right in the stories that happen immediately after the resurrection. So today, let's dive into this framework and see how it might help us navigate our own deepest struggles.
So let's start with a question that I think hits pretty close to home for a lot of people. Have you ever felt like your faith has just gone cold? You know that feeling like Jesus has somehow left the building of your life and you're not quite sure how to get that fire back? It is way more common than you might think.
And according to Viola's work, this feeling of disconnection is just one of four major spiritual hurdles people face. The others? Well, there's having your hopes completely dashed, maybe by a church or a leader you really trusted. Then there's going through a period of profound, serious doubt about everything. And finally, there's that heavy, heavy weight of a past failure, that feeling that you're just totally disqualified. These are the four big problems we're going to tackle. Okay, but to really get the solutions, we first have to understand the key that unlocks all of this. Viola proposes that the Gospel of John isn't just a biography. It's written as a kind of symbolic new creation story. It's a story that intentionally mirrors and then reverses the story of the old creation back in Genesis. And this is where the framework gets really fascinating. Just look at these parallels. In Genesis, on the sixth day, a Friday, man is created and God's work is declared finished. Now fast forward to John's Gospel. On the sixth day, Good Friday, Pilate presents Jesus and says, "Behold the man," and then Jesus on the cross declares, "It is finished." Viola says this is no accident. It's a deep theological echo that's setting the stage for a massive reversal. So, with that big idea in our back pocket, let's dive into the encounters themselves and see how this all plays out. We're going to look at four very specific stories right after the resurrection and see how each one acts as a kind of symbolic solution, a divine reversal for one of those four big struggles we talked about. We start with Mary Magdalene. She gets to the tomb on Sunday morning, and it's empty. Her Lord is just gone. She perfectly represents that first and maybe most common struggle, that feeling of being completely lost and disconnected from God. So what's her roadmap back? Well, first, it's relentless pursuit. She doesn't just shrug and go home. She runs, she searches, she weeps. Second, it's humility. The text says she stoops down to look in the tomb. And this leads to this amazing symbol. She mistakes Jesus for a gardener, which suggests the grave has just been turned into a new Eden. But the real breakthrough, the moment everything changes, is when he simply says her name. The path back from that feeling of disconnection involves this relentless, humble search until you can hear his voice speak to you again. Next up, we meet these two disciples on the road to Emmaus. They had put every ounce of their hope in Jesus to redeem Israel, and now he was dead. Their hopes weren't just a little bruised, they were completely crushed. This is the story for anyone who's been deeply, deeply let down by a ministry or a spiritual promise that just fell apart. Now, to get their solution, we have to go back to that framework we talked about. Remember what happened in the Garden of Eden? A couple, Adam and Eve, they ate the wrong food, and the Bible says their eyes were opened, but they were opened only to their own shame. Now watch this beautiful reversal. In Emmaus, we have another couple. They share a meal with the risen Christ. They eat the right food, the broken bread, and the text uses the exact same phrase, "Their eyes were opened," and they finally recognized him. It's incredible. The fall, which kicked off with a meal, is now being symbolically reversed with a meal. So for anyone dealing with dashed hopes, the path forward is pretty clear. It starts with hospitality. They invite the stranger in. Then their hearts begin to burn as he opens up the scriptures and reframes the whole story for them. But that final moment of recognition only comes when he breaks the bread, because as he does, they see the wounds in his hands. The path to restoring hope isn't about avoiding pain. It's about learning to recognize Christ in the wounds, both his and our own. All right, let's talk about a very modern problem, profound doubt. And for that, we have Thomas. I mean, he's not just a little skeptical. He needs cold, hard, physical proof. He literally says, "Unless I can put my finger in the nail marks, I will not believe." So what's the path through that kind of doubt? First, and this is so important, Thomas stays with the community. He doesn't go off and isolate himself in his disbelief. Second, he's brutally honest about his questions. And third, when Jesus finally shows up, what happens? He doesn't get a lecture. He's not shamed. Instead, Jesus meets him right where he is, honoring his honest doubt by offering the very proof he demanded. And finally, we get to Peter. Peter is just absolutely crushed by the shame of his catastrophic failure. He denied Jesus 3 times, and now he feels so completely disqualified that he's just given up. He's gone back to his old life, back to fishing. This story is for anyone who is just haunted by a past mistake.
Now, to really understand his restoration, you have to notice this tiny but absolutely crucial detail in the text. The Gospel of John specifically points out that when Peter denied Jesus, he was warming himself by a charcoal fire. Think about that. That smell. That setting. It's the scene of his greatest shame.
And this is where the story becomes just breathtaking. When the risen Jesus finds Peter on the shore, what has he done? He has built another charcoal fire. It's the only other time that phrase is used in the entire New Testament. He intentionally recreates the scene of the crime, not to rub it in, but to redeem it. And the restoration is perfectly symmetrical. By that very same fire, Jesus asks Peter 3 times, "Do you love me?" He gives him 3 new commissions to completely and totally cancel out the 3 denials. The failure isn't just forgiven, it's completely erased and repurposed.
So, what does this all mean for us today? What's the big takeaway? The key idea here is that these 4 stories are so much more than just ancient history. They're archetypes. They provide 4 very different roadmaps for us to find our own way back to a real encounter with Christ, right in the middle of whatever we're facing.
So let's just recap. If you're feeling disconnected like Mary, the path is one of relentless pursuit. If your hopes have been totally dashed like the Emmaus couple, you've got to look for him in the wounds. If you are wrestling with some serious doubt like Thomas, the key is to stay connected to your community. And if you're weighed down by a past failure like Peter, you can find him waiting for you at the site of your shame, ready to offer complete redemption. And that really brings us to the final question, the one that truly matters. As you look at these 4 paths, pursuit through tears, finding him in the wounds, honest doubt in community, and redemption from failure, which one of those resonates the most with where you are in your own experience right now? Because the beautiful promise of these stories is that no matter where you find yourself, there is a path back to an encounter.